Back in my day, when you lost at a video game, you lose money. You'd have to pay to continue. Yes, of course, I'm talking about Dave & Buster's. Typically here at Delayed Input, we're following the Weekly Hubbub. It's a weekly hubbub program, but tonight I'd like to talk about maybe a more abstract gaming subject, maybe draw in some hot hubbub here and there. But something I've been thinking about a lot lately is trust in its relation to video games. Specifically, I think, 1, you need trust to start a game, and 2, you need trust to keep playing a game. So I see sequels as something that are easier to trust. It's not as scary to take the plunge on a sequel of a game that you liked before. But there's this case, even sometimes when it is a sequel, even when it is a known quantity, a lot of games work really hard to prove to you that they're going to be a long-term game. That you won't regret this in 2 weekends. Like Ghost of Yotei recently announced the return of its freely included Legends multiplayer mode with barely anything to show for it. It's not at all a reason to buy the game now, but the intent is for you to feel better about buying the game now. It's practically frugal. Inversely, I do want to talk about what was maybe the most obscene moment of last week's Nintendo Direct. Viewers were asked to pre-order DLC on top of their existing pre-orders for Pokemon Legends ZA. Again, nothing to show of it, other than Hoopa here and 2 new Mega Raichus, who unfortunately do seem pretty cool. But in that case, they're not giving you reasons to trust them. They are, rather impolitely, asking you to trust them. Hollow X and Hollow Y apparel items, which are left up to your imagination, those are available day of release, and then additional story content is coming soon. All that for only $30, please. And to be fair, that game's page on the store does say that the story content is planned for release by February 28th, 2026. And they do include one screenshot of the titular Mega Dimension. Ready? Yep. There it is. So no, that doesn't build trust, that demands trust. Trust us, this will be good. If pre-ordering is an act of faith, pre-ordering DLC for a pre-ordered game is an act of religious devotion. Can Mega Raichu Y get an amen? I really like roadmaps, video game roadmaps showing what they'll be doing for the next year or so. I think that they have an interesting perspective on this whole conversation in that they're this strange in-between giving trust and requiring trust. They're assuring, look at all the stuff that will be coming to the game, but also typically they're going to have their own fair share of ambiguity. Oh no, look at this fire. Diablo 4, new what? Tell us, new what? About 2 weeks before the release of Borderlands 4, they revealed their roadmap at a PAX panel. And it kind of just looks like a regular roadmap to me, right? I guess it's notable they got a new character coming out in the first 6 months. And they got this tab down here that says free content pearlescent rarity. Doesn't seem like content, right? But this crowd seems kind of into it.
Turn that gun over and move it a little bit. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but the skin looks a little pearlescent, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say it looks a little pearlescent? Pearlescents are back. Pearlescents are back, baby. Pearlescent, and it's because of Grant and the guys on his team. And listen, it's not going to be easy. The droplet rates for when they can drop, it's less than 1%.
Now, you might assume that audience was magically coerced into applause by known magician Randy Pitchford. But look at the praise on this Reddit post titled, "Couldn't be happier with the roadmap we received." Someone says they absolutely took lessons learned to heart and are listening to the player base. Very excited about this game. Someone else says, "So much content." Evidently, they built a lot of trust with that roadmap. Things have changed, for sure, but for a fleeting moment there, before the game came out, there was trust. And also, I do want to acknowledge that sometimes you have zero reason to trust that you will like a game but you buy it because you trust its creator. For instance, I think Kirby Air Riders looks like a dumb mess. Like somebody took the free used baby toys box at a garage sale and just started shaking it violently. However, I trust this man, Masahiro Sakurai, director of Kirby Air Riders. Best in the biz. Let's face it, regardless of review scores, regardless of dire warnings from my greatest friends, I will be spending $70 US just to see what's in that box that man is shaking.
人のプレイでは画面用意するかもしれませんから、画面から少し離れたり、画面を小さくするのがおすすめです。
So now let's talk about that second point, how you need trust to keep playing a game. Now, I think you'd say, what? It's not that complicated. You stop playing a game when you get bored. I will say, personally, I'm not always having a blast when I'm playing a video game. It's not always wowee, wow, whoa, cool. You know, sometimes you're just climbing up like a snowy mountain and you just think, ooh, this sucks. And then sometimes you slip down that mountain and this really sucks. And then somehow you just like keep falling. You keep falling way more than you would think you would be falling. Surely this will end soon, but no, it's just more falling. We are grown adults. We don't deserve to be treated like that by our entertainment. So I will say the only thing getting me back up that mountain is the trust that it will be worth it. And yeah, you guessed correctly. The only reason I'm thinking about any of this is Silksong. Been playing Silksong for about 2 weeks now, right? I'm still in Act 2. And I feel like half or more of my playtime is just spent failing. Just getting rocked. Just like carefully and methodically working my way up into the final phase of a boss, and then panicking and making 2 mistakes and suddenly I'm dead. And then it's 15 minutes back until I'm at that moment again. It's enough to drive one mad. And yeah, there's a lot of discussions to be had about the difficulty of Silksong. I don't know if Team Cherry will ever again have an interview where they don't have to answer a question about it. But I think, you know, it's just undebatably difficult. I'm telling you, there were moments last night where I was wavering. I was not sure I'd be able to get through this. In my late night stupor, I lost faith. I truly wondered if I was going to be one of those mature adults who just quits the game for the benefit of my mental health. And then obviously I kept going because I trust this game. I trust there's going to be more. I can trust that the very next part of this game will be cool. You know, I can trust for sure there will be cool new bugs. There will be cool new gear to pick up. I trust that whatever they are building to at the end of this insurmountable climb is going to be worth it. And then maybe most importantly, I have trust in the creators. I have trust in Team Cherry. I have to trust that they know how obnoxious these boss fights are. I gotta trust that they're doing this to me for a reason. And so far to this point, Silksong has rewarded my trust consistently. So I'm sticking with it. And to be honest with you, to be real and true with you, I did last night for the first time look up boss strats. And probably one of the most frustrating things you can see on YouTube is a guide where the person is barely better than you, right? You're watching somebody fight the boss, doing the same things you're doing, getting hit all the time, and then just getting like 5% luckier than you are, and somehow they beat the boss. And then in the comments, the person who uploaded that video says, yeah, it wasn't that hard. It works in a way where I spitefully return to the boss, right? Sometimes spite can be a motivator. And also, if you're watching this video as someone who too is struggling with Silksong and you're like, Kyle's not that good. How is he doing this? My tip would be to get a lot of shards, right? Just go go farm shards, right? Put on a podcast, farm some shards so that you can feel okay with being profuse with tools. My main Silksong tip is be profuse. And really, I think difficulty is just one aspect of something that may challenge your faith in wanting to continue to play a game. Because I think taste is another factor, right? You have faith that Team Cherry has good taste. Sometimes you can tell that a game creator doesn't have any sense of aesthetics. Or even decency, really. And up to this point, it's given you no reason to believe it's going to get better. At that point, it's time to go. And yeah, I realize Balan Wonderworld is an unimpressively easy target here. So, for more of a bummer of an example, I gave up on Wanderstop this year. So I got to this point where I accidentally ran out of a very specific kind of berry seed, and it was going to take a lot of gardening to get back to making this magic tea that I'm guessing this customer wants. And at that point, I simply bailed. I was out. Because the game's whole setup is, you were a warrior. That's who you were. Now you're here at the tea farm. Listen to this big, likable guy. You like this guy. We know you like him. He's trying to teach you patience. He's trying to teach you that sometimes a tea farming game can be just as fun and rewarding as a sword killing game. So yeah, this is my failure. You could say it's on me, but I was not willing to trust Wanderstop to be worth it in the end. I didn't trust that the ending was going to resolve itself in a way that was satisfying to me. Because another thing though, this is different, but also kind of the same. They wipe out your collectibles at the end of the season. So like, let's say you dug up a mug that you thought was a really cool mug and you put it on a shelf. That just disappears. And you think, why would you do that to me? And the game essentially says, just wait. It'll all make sense in the end. Trust me. And I can't. No, thank you. If I wanted unqualified life advice that bad, I would just read the comments on my videos. And that's Delayed Input. I'll be back next week. Until then, thanks for watching. I want to make an addendum to the primary point I was making in this video, in that saying like, hey, you need trust to buy a game or keep playing a game, because I think there's something to curiosity. So one time in college, me and a few friends took a trip to the Syracuse Mall. Technically, I think it was called the Carousel Center at the time, but most people just called it the Syracuse Mall. Anyway, it was a big mall. In fact, they kept adding expansions in an attempt to become one of the largest malls in the United States. By size. Today, this mall is called, perhaps ominously, Destiny USA. And they've settled on just being #1 in New York. I wanted to see how they're doing right now. This year, the Margaritaville closed after 10 years, but they did get a Wetzel's Pretzels, so it's not all bad. Anyway, I'm there in 2006, when it's not called Destiny USA. And obviously, with my cool group of friends, I stray to go find the video game store at this giant mall. And in the store, in a bin in the back, I find an NES cartridge that is unlabeled. It's had its sticker torn off. And apparently, they just had no way of testing what game this actually was. So they were just selling an unmarked NES cartridge. It could be anything. I'm sure this doesn't surprise you. I bought it. I bought that game. And that was not an act of trust. That was an act of curiosity, naturally. Right? I was frankly gambling. That's all you could really say. And incidentally, that cartridge turned out to be Dragon Warrior, aka Dragon Quest 1, which is, that's a good pull, basically. That was nice. I will say that I played it for a bit. I ended up stopping sometime after the first boss. You could say I got bored, but for the sake of this whole thing we're doing tonight, let's just say I lost trust that anything more exciting could possibly happen in that game. So returning to the thesis of this video, yeah, you need trust to start a game. You need trust to keep playing a game, asterisk, unless it is very cheap or very short, in which case curiosity will suffice. Thank you.